What's going on, Tyler? Good morning, man. Super excited for today.
Yeah, me too. We got some good content. I'm
We,
anxious to dig in.
yeah, this is going to be super awesome. And so, hello to everybody that's watching. Make sure that you engage in the chat. Let us know, and we're going to answer questions and stuff at the end. And I think we should probably just hop right into it, man. I don't think there's any reason to delay. We're going to show how to build a business that everybody hates, and it's probably going to get you sued. Oh, hey, what's going on, Heather? Hi. Can you hear us? Is our audio good? Mic check 1 2. This is our first time using Restream. I think we're good. They'll tell us. Okay, let's just go ahead and hop right into it, everybody. So, why is experience more important than your business's bank account? Well, there's a very real cost of a bad customer experience, isn't there, Tyler?
There really is. There really is. So the first thing is damaged reputation. So when you have a poor or bad customer experience, not only is there something to be said for negative reviews, but also just like, a few years ago in the B2B space, there was this concept called dark social that got really popular. But that's where B2B buyers are really talking about what services to buy. So there's going to be, negative word of mouth from person to person to person as they're exploring different things. So damage reputation is a big one.
Yeah, that's like that's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to a bad customer experience, because you have a bad reputation, you're going to start to see losses in your business, because if somebody's not happy, they're less likely to return, and they're probably going to go ahead and take their business somewhere else. In fact, something like this happened literally just last night. Was placing a food order through the app, ordered dinner for me and my wife, and went to the drive-through, got home, and they completely forgot her sandwich. And so, like, I'm not thrilled about that, and I'm definitely going to be a little less likely to just be like, yeah, let's go order food in the app. And that's just a bad customer experience. Clearly it was there on the order, but it missed. And, they're probably not going to go there that often. Hey, what's going on, chat? Got Kathy there, and Ning Yang, my boy, Ning Yang. Good to see you, everybody. And then, like you said, this is the tip of the iceberg for a bad customer experience. What's the worst possible thing here, Tyler?
Yeah, and then the last thing is legal consequences, right? Poorly handled customer experiences can lead to lawsuits, fines, and even regulatory action, right? We've experienced this with a few brands because one of the spaces that we play in is in telehealth and healthcare. So there's a lot of regulatory rules, updates. Things are kind of always shifting. And so we have to pay attention to that regulatory landscape, or else clients can end up getting in trouble. And those are typically, something that you have to action fairly quickly.
Yeah, and like you must fix those. Like if regulatory action shows up, you have to fix that. Otherwise, there's very serious real world consequences. The bottom line is that if you have a bad customer experience, there's all sorts of impacts. It's a very far reaching thing, and it's ultimately going to impact the viability of your business and how long it might actually stick around. So we're going to go ahead and cover 9 specific things that you probably don't want to do. Otherwise, it's going to create a bad customer experience. But let's first go ahead and introduce ourselves, Tyler, so people know who we are. So you're an email nerd, but what are you?
Yeah, so I've specialized in B2B email marketing. I've been in this space for roughly just over a decade, and have had my own agency for about the last 5 years. And we really focus on the B2B space. Like I said, we've recently dove into telehealth and healthcare, and that's been a fun journey where we build out their email lifecycle program. We handle their deliverability, their sales pipeline, and all of those awesome things.
Yes, that's actually how me and Tyler got connected way back in the day on LinkedIn. He was writing some stuff that really spoke to my heart, and I'm like, this guy thinks about email marketing and customer experience exactly like I do. This is our second live training that we've done. We did one back at the end of 2024, relationships at scale. So after you're done watching this, go look back through our videos. You should see it there. You got our smiling faces. I'm Paul Sokol. I have also been doing this forever. I've actually had my agency for 10 years in May, and I've been doing customer journey and customer experience stuff since 2008 when I was in grad school. So as far as like, why should you lean in? Why should you listen to us? We're superheroes, although Tyler's a little cooler. I'm just sitting there punching the air, fighting my demons. But we've got plenty of experience between us, and we were looking at it when we were putting this together. We've probably been responsible for well over 1 million emails and texts between the two of us. So we know what's awesome, what's not awesome, and we're going to go ahead and share that with you. And I think we're going to go ahead and hop right into it. Should we get into it, chat? Is everybody excited to see what we're going to go for?
Heck yes, let's go.
Do it. All right. So here are the 9 tactics to ensure unhappy customers. Obviously, this is a little tongue-in-cheek. You don't want to do this, but we're going to kind of look at what are the F students doing. So, and we'll give you examples of what the A student looks like. So we know that the customer experience, it's usually marketing, sales, and fulfillment. We're actually going to start at fulfillment and work backwards, and you'll see why as we go along. So, first tactic here to ensure unhappy customers. We're going to dig in deep into these. This is just an overview. This is pretty much an overview of exactly what we're going to cover today. Is if you sell something without knowing how you're going to deliver on the goods, that's going to upset people. You're definitely going to have unhappy customers.
Yep. Ignoring delivery systems. So ensuring that your systems are working well after somebody has purchased.
Yeah, you don't worry about the process. That's not important. Nobody cares about that. The other thing on the other side of the process side is your people. Just abdicate to your team. Don't worry about delegating or setting up for success. Just go ahead and do that. If you do all 3 of these things in your fulfillment, you're sure to have some unhappy customers.
Yeah. And then shifting over to sales. So what happens before fulfillment? Selling something without knowing exactly what the customer will literally get. It hurts the sales process. It's much easier to show people, here's exactly what you're going to get. So this is something you'll want to avoid.
Yeah. But if you want unhappy customers, definitely do that. Don't tell people what they're going to get. Make them guess. And same thing with your sales reps too. Make sure that they're completely isolated from the fulfillment. There's no need to have the left hand and the right hand know what they're doing. They just want to go ahead and get the sale regardless of if we can go ahead and deliver it.
Tactic 6, using the Wild West tactic of selling. We'll get into more of this later, but this is essentially just selling however and whenever you can.
Yeah. You do that, everyone's going to be thoroughly unhappy because different people are going to be told different things. So then further upstream, getting to the marketing here, definitely make sure that you're pushing something without knowing why the customer should care. That's not important. You want unhappy customers, so who cares why they should go ahead and pay attention to it.
And tactic 8, completely isolating the marketing team from the sales team. It's always best if your marketing team has their specific goals, the sales team has their specific goals, and they never talk to each other.
Yeah, there's no reason to do that. If you want unhappy customers, definitely do that. And then the last tactic is just manic acts of marketing. Just do whatever you feel like. Go ahead and behave emotionally. It'll totally work, and everyone's going to love you for it. This is the meat and potatoes, what we're going to cover, and we're going to go ahead and do a deep dive into each one of these starting right now. So let's go ahead and look at fulfillment. So selling without knowing how you're going to deliver. You hear people regularly say, hey, go ahead and sell it first and then go ahead and build it later. And that's really bad. I remember when I used to work at Infusionsoft many years ago, now Keep, that sales would go ahead and regularly say that the software could do something, but it actually couldn't. Or if it could do it, it was like a real specific use case, or it was like a really technical thing. And that's not the way to roll. You got to know how you're going to deliver what you're selling.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that we're saying like, don't pre-sell something that you're fully intending on building. The key here, especially with that example, is the sales reps don't really have control over what features were being released and when. So they were selling something without actually ever knowing if one, that thing would ever actually be built, or even if it could be built, right? So, we've worked with pre-revenue companies before where we were selling something that actually hadn't been created yet, but there was a path that we were working on to launch that product or that service. And the other thing is the brand had already spent a lot of time building that trust with their audience. And so while we didn't have the actual deliverable at the time of that sale, we still were knowing what we were going to deliver when, and there was a full roadmap there.
Yeah. So you got to have that brand trust. If you're going to try and do this and not totally crater yourself, people do need to know, what you're doing here. So yeah, definitely don't do this. You got to know how you're going to do it. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for failure, and people aren't going to go ahead and love you for that. So ignoring your delivery systems, man, you had some really good insights on this one when we were rehearsing this, Tyler.
Yeah, this one's a big one, especially for anybody that's working in like a service capacity, right? Not having good delivery systems right away just typically leads to a high amount of churn. I remember when I first started my agency, we were still figuring out our own onboarding process and what the best way was to capture all of the information that we needed from clients so that we could deliver things for them quickly. And it took us a while. It took us a lot of iterations to nail down the optimal onboarding sequence for us and what worked for us and what worked for our clients. But it can lead to a very chaotic and unreliable delivery experience that does lead to cancellations or churn.
Yeah, or it can be refunds too. If you're not doing something that's service-based and you're selling products, but the delivery is bad, you're going to get people refunding, or even worse, maybe doing like chargebacks. And then that has talking about the worst, like legal regulatory stuff. Chargebacks are really bad for you as a merchant. Like that impacts your reputation with like the banks and the gateways. So you got to make sure your delivery systems are in place. Especially if you're doing any kind of like a service-based thing where there's like an onboarding, you got to make sure that it's repeatable, that it's very intentionally designed, and it should be the same for everybody. And for the team inside, it should be kind of boring. Not necessarily to say that we're not excited to do what we do and we're serving our folks, but it shouldn't be an adventure. Onboarding should not be like like an Indiana Jones thing where you're swinging between caverns and dodging rocks and stuff like that. Your onboarding should be super dialed in and just repeatable and boring. There should be minimal surprises. And even if there are things that are challenging, make sure that's built into your process. So like we run ads all the time for clients, and getting ad account access, that's obviously a process. It's very repeatable. It's not thrilling. But sometimes there's a little bit of flies in the ointment there. It's a little funky to get access, and we have that built into our process that if we are hitting these roadblocks, we just get on the call with someone, we have them share their screen, and we've got our checklist of like, okay, go here, look at this, check this, and we work to get them unstuck. So
and one thing with that is it actually builds a lot of confidence from the client's perspective that you've done this before.
Yes.
Way back in another life, when I was doing door-to-door sales, I remember one of the trainings that we had is they were like, a lot of door-to-door people, they approach the door with almost too much energy, like too much excitement, because they think that that's how to get people excited about the sale. And they were like, it's actually better to approach it as almost like a meter maid or an order taker. You kind of almost want to sound bored because you're doing this so often. Now, that's not to say be low energy. It's to say, we've got this process so dialed in. Here's the exact things that I need from you in this order. And when you lead that conversation, it builds a lot of confidence from the customer or the client that, Paul's done this 100 times before. I definitely trust him with my ad account.
Yeah. So, and you can't do that unless you have your delivery systems really dialed in. So don't ignore those. That's really bad. And then when it comes to the people part of your systems, you don't want to be abdicating to your team. And Tyler, you were telling me about a parenting book that is almost directly in alignment with this, right?
Yeah, so I'm reading a phenomenal book for any parents out there, even non-parents. This is a great book about the age range of 10 to 25. So it's called 10 to 25, The Science of Motivating Young People. And essentially, all of the concepts can be summarized in a simple phrase of high standards and high support. So in the book, it kind of talks about how you have typically an enforcer mindset, which is really high standards and low support, or you have the protector mindset, which is low standards but high support. And their whole concept of the book is how do you kind of meet in the middle and really establish high standards and also have high support. So I actually just went through this with one of my copywriters, where I was implementing that enforcer mindset. I had very high standards for our copy, but as I was going through his onboarding and things like that, I realized that I was kind of expecting him to just kind of figure things out and kind of know our systems, our processes, how we like to deliver with clients, how we like to format the email so it's really easy for clients to understand how things fit in and what we need them to do. And so I found myself with a ton of frustration towards this copywriter because I was like, why are you not doing this? Like, it's so easy. And as I was reviewing things, I realized that I'd failed on that support side and really teaching him how we do all of these little things. And so when I think about abdicating to your team, I've really started to shift my mindset of, okay, we have to have high standards because, we need to get results for our clients. How can I pair that with high support? So it's not me doing all the work. I'm still expecting my team to do their job, right? But I'm also showing up and making sure that they have the tools, the knowledge, the resources that they need to meet that standard.
Yeah. And there's a big difference between abdicating and delegating. When you're delegating, there is that high standard, high support. You're not just doing like a dump and dash. I see a lot of leaders out there where they're delegating, but really they're just abdicating. They're creating a weak vision and then saying, "Hey, go ahead and figure it out." A good example of that over here at Be Pro is we use Trello for our project management, and there is a very clearly defined way that we use it with standards of like what goes on. We have a couple different boards for the main parts of the business. Where do cards go on each board? What are the specific lists that we're using? And even down to what's in each particular card and how is it supposed to be used. So when I brought on Justin, who he's helping man the chat here for Be Pro and the YouTube, I didn't just say, "Hey, Justin, we use Trello for project management. Here you go." I sat down and walked him through, this is how we use Trello. And then I worked and trained and developed him on this is what's expected of it. So now when he puts something into Trello and I look at his card, I know exactly the things that I'm expecting to see are there. And same thing with me. If I'm creating a project for like a marketing thing and I'm leaving some notes, I make sure that it's clear for him. And that's that kind of standard. So you got to have that clear direction, which sometimes takes time, but it's absolutely worth it. Just like with the process, it takes time, but it's absolutely worth it. And so that's kind of why we wanted to start with the fulfillment part of the customer journey first, because everything kind of flows back from there.
Yeah, we have a comment on YouTube that is just Inspired Marketing Services. I think you mentioned that was Heather.
Yep.
100% agree that clients will come in expecting you to just know everything and all the ins and outs of the business and that information. I just went through this with a new client. They're wanting to move fast. So we designed some mock-ups of some lead magnets that we wanted to use. And they hadn't shared any of their brand information over with me yet. So we were just kind of looking at their website and kind of like making educated guesses on like fonts and different things like that. And her first response was, well, this is on brand. I was like, you haven't even shared over your brand guidelines with me yet. Of course it's not on brand. Like, what are you talking about? This is just a mock-up so that we can get approval on the copy and the angle, and then before it launches, then we'll bring it on brand. So totally agree with that. Sometimes you do have to remind them, like, hey, it's not our business. We don't live in this every single day. We need you to communicate that stuff to us. And that goes back to having a good delivery system to make sure that, or a fulfillment system to make sure that you're capturing that and those types of things. So great call out.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in general, when it comes to fulfillment, the big takeaway is that making delivery easy, it takes hard work. Just to intentionally sit down and design this stuff and execute it and make sure that there's governance and accountability with the team and that you have these systems in place. It takes time. It takes something, but it is absolutely worth it. 100%.
Yeah. I always tell my team it's always worth it to take 2 extra minutes to make sure that the email that we're sending to the client is very clear, or the notes that we're leaving on a task are very clear, because it will solve a 15-minute conversation in the future, right? Take 2 minutes to save yourself 15 minutes. It's worth it every time.
Yeah, slow down to speed up. I've been on that kick a lot lately. So let's get into the sales tactics that will create unhappy customers. So we talked about selling without knowing what your customer is going to get. I've got a funny story about this, but Tyler, I'll let you lead with your notes on this one, because
sure,
yours is a lot more fun than mine. Or
I don't know if mine's more fun, but I was working with a coach a while ago, and one of the things that he recommended is he's like, I always do an end of year walk, and I just think about the business, think about what I want to accomplish over the next year. And he's like, I leave my phone. He's like, I might take my phone just to take notes. But anyways, the reason I'm telling this is because it was on this walk and I was thinking about my fulfillment, and I was thinking about what it is that I wanted to share or sell. And I developed what I call the email operating system. And so this is what I've changed all of my sales around, of this process of deliverability and sales and lifecycle automation, to authority content, to list growth strategies, to A/B testing. And what happened and how it relates to this is there are companies that know the category that they sell. Like in my case, we sell email marketing, but it's kind of a nebulous concept, if you will. Like what is email marketing? What's inside it? What do you mean when you say I'm going to pay you money to do email marketing for me? Are you just sending out emails? Like I don't understand, right? And so on this walk, when I figured out, okay, here's like the 5 elements that I want to take care of to build somebody's email marketing program out. Now I have a slide deck around it. So when I'm talking to potential clients, I can say, one of the first things that we look at is we look at your deliverability. Here's the reports that we run. Here's what this looks like. Here's how we fix it if things go wrong. Here's what we monitor month to month. Then we move over to your life cycle. Here's what the life cycle looks like. Here's how it applies to your business. Here's how it's going to help you make more revenue. And so every client that comes in, they know exactly what areas we're going to be focusing on and when. And it's made sales much easier. And it's made also on the client side much easier of what, like, they understand what it is that we will do and what it is that we won't do.
Yeah. That's critical to that last part of what won't we do. You got to know what's included and what's not included, because like having those expectations are critical when it comes to the fulfillment. So for example, at Be Pro, we do customer journey design, and we'll play around on your CRMs and help you build stuff, but we do not do website development. We can embed a form on your website. We can do some basic stuff, but we're not going to sit and like redesign home pages or help you move servers or whatever the case is. Like that's clearly not something that we do. And I'm very clear about that in our sales process when talking to folks. And most of our clients usually do have web people on their team already. And if not, that's a really good point in the sales conversation to say, cool, we're going to need to find someone to partner up with on this. And that's totally okay, because then they have a bigger team supporting them on what they're trying to do. and you got to know exactly what they're going to get. So here's the funny story with this. This is a Disney story. So one time many years ago, me and my parents were at Disney World in Orlando, Florida, and so I had been to Disneyland in California. And specifically, I love the Little Mermaid movie. That just came out like when I was a kid. It's probably one of my favorite Disney movies. And of course, they have the Little Mermaid ride in Disneyland, California. And so when we were at Disney World in Orlando, I saw this, entrance to something that's like Little Mermaid. I'm like, oh, cool. Hey, mom and dad, they have this Little Mermaid ride in Orlando. I didn't know that. So we waited in line. And it was a Disney line. We were there for, I don't know, 30, 60 minutes. And as we got closer to the end of the line, we were looking around and we noticed that it was like a lot of families with like little kids. And I'm like, that's kind of weird, but it's a kid's ride. It's not really aggressive or anything like that. It's not a roller coaster. And at the very end of the line, we turned the corner and it was just an actor dressed up as Ariel. It was a photo opportunity. It was not the Little Mermaid ride. And so we turned the corner. We're like, oh, okay, and then just left. We didn't even take a photo because I didn't want a photo. I wanted the ride. And so I didn't know what I was getting when I got in that line. I assumed it was the Little Mermaid ride, but it was not. And that was really,
How long were you waiting in line? Just guesstimate.
it was probably at least 30 to 60 minutes, man. It was a line, so that it was the line ride. That's what we got in mind for.
And as how old were you?
I was a grown ass man. I was a full adult.
Okay,
so,
full adult. Okay, but still, as you're getting closer to the front of the line, I feel like for me, I'm always like, okay, like we're getting there, we're getting close. Like I'm getting more excited, and then to turn the corner and see that it's just a photo off it.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, I got more suspicious. I'm like, okay, I don't hear like mechanical ride carts or anything like that. I'm like, okay, well maybe but yeah, that was funny. I think the best way to wrap this up, this particular tactic is, and we're almost about halfway through our slides, guys. We got 26 slides. We're on slide 10. I'll make sure we're keeping us on time. The Big Mac, right? 2 all beef patties, lettuce, pickle, special sauce on a sesame seed bun. That's exactly what you're gonna get. You got to be clear on what's included, what's not included, so that way the customer is super clear what's going to happen on the other side. Okay, let's move on to the next one here. So this is an operational problem where the sales teams and the delivery teams are totally isolated, and this would happen. I mentioned earlier, working at Infusionsoft, I was a success coach. So people would buy the software, and then I would help them with the kickstart in their first 60 days to get using the software, right? And so sometimes the handoff between sales and fulfillment was not good. Either the sales rep didn't leave clear notes, or they weren't necessarily selling the service right or creating the expectations right for the kickstart. And so I'd sometimes come onto a call totally blind, be like, hey, I'm your success coach. I'm going to go ahead and help you. So tell me about your business. And this customer would have to have the exact same conversation that they'd already had when there was no need for that. If the sales team had left like clear notes, or at least this is the kind of business they are, this is what they're wanting to do, that would have made it a little more delightful. But when you isolate those sales and delivery teams and you don't have that clear feedback loop, it's a problem. And then that handoff is just awkward.
Yeah. The way that I think about this too is in a previous life, I fulfilled fractional like CMO level roles with a few different companies. And part of the responsibilities there were vetting marketing software. And so I've hopped on a lot of demos for software. And because I want those calls to be a good use of time, in almost every case, I'll send over notes of here's the main problem that we're trying to solve. Here are elements of your software that I would like to see to help us solve these problems. I'll even do like a Loom video to be as clear as possible. And like, I know the software is big, but here's like our immediate needs. And I want to understand if the software can solve these things. And I will tell you that like 9 times out of 10, the demo would go along like this. Hey, thank you so much for sending over those notes. I know that you want to see this part of the software. We'll get into that. Let me show you some of these other things. And those things would have zero relation to what I needed to be able to see to then go back to the CEO and say, yes, like this is what we need to move forward. Like at the end of that demo, I would still be like, so can this actually do what I need it to do? Right? Like I could pay for this today if you showed me these things, but you didn't show me these things. Blows my mind every time I think about it. But the reason I bring that up is because this is very, that handoff is just so critical in terms of there are things that the client or the customer is trying to do, right? And you need to document that and then hand that off from sales to delivery to speed things up, to make sure that you have the right milestones and goals in order, or else it breaks the whole fulfillment system, because now you're having to start over and the customer does not like that, or at least I never enjoy that.
Yeah, no, it's just not a good experience. It's a really disjointed, jerky kind of thing, and not jerk as in like personality, just like it's a and it's not smooth. People don't like that. So make sure your sales and your delivery teams are absolutely talking together. That's really important. And also, part of that actually dovetails really nicely into our next tactic of the Wild West selling, where if every single sales rep is doing their own thing and there's no standard, then everything is just the Wild West. I'll see this a lot with large sales teams where marketing will do their job and then it'll start putting new opportunities into the pipeline. But then because everybody's operating independently, there's not a good like sales manager that's like training and developing these folks. Those new opportunity buckets will just fill up, and speed to lead is critical when it comes to sales. But you'd have some sales reps that like they're paying super close attention to their new opportunities, and those are usually some of the most successful ones. And then you'd have other ones that they're not paying attention to that, because they're just running around randomly and there's no actual training and nobody helping to develop and lead those folks, and that's not predictable. You can't really grow or scale in that way, or at least if you do, it's going to be slow and it's going to take a lot longer than it should have.
Yeah, and this kind of touches on a couple of things that we've talked about before, like knowing exactly what people are going to buy or get, how you're going to deliver on that, and things like that. Way back in the day, I worked for an Infusionsoft partner that was also fulfilling on Kickstarts. And one of the sales processes was that lead would come in, we would fulfill on the Kickstart, and then we would offer one last strategy call, which is really the call with the sales rep at that company, where we would try to then upsell them continued services, right? And because this was a small company, like we honestly were just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick and at what price point, right? But it became a pretty big problem, because on the delivery side, if the sales rep didn't leave really, really clear notes about what exactly was sold, they would come into that call where we were like, so what do you want to do today? And they were like, well, we're expecting you to do this thing. Or he would overpromise what we could do for like the funnel that they wanted. We want to do a webinar, and this is how exactly we wanted to go. And the sales rep would be like, yeah, okay, we'll do that for $1,000. But it ended up being $5,000 worth of work, right? And so now we're underselling ourselves, and we're like, why are we not making a profit? Well, it's because everybody's so busy selling this thing. And so it really took a lot of work and kind of like push and pull to say, okay, here's the packages that we offer. Here's what is in there. Here's what isn't in there. Because just the gunslinging from the sales rep, it was working, quote unquote, because we were selling, but there was very little profit. Everybody was overworked and there was wasted time because we were having to figure out what was sold so that we could actually end up fulfilling on it. So having a documented process, having good systems even around sales, absolutely critical for good delivery.
Yeah, I think Heather left the comments, spray and pray. Yeah, that's the Wild West selling. Just throw whatever you can out there, and if somebody buys it, cool, great. But then now it's a scramble on the delivery and expectations and all the stuff that we've talked about before. So major takeaway with sales is that doing sales consistently, it is boring and unsexy. You have your processes, you know what you're selling, you know how to have those conversations, how to send out contracts or quotes or whatever. It's just a repeatable process. Anybody should be able to not be there, and somebody else should be able to pick up the conversation. It shouldn't be.
You got to say the quote, Paul. You got to say the quote.
All right, fine. Anyone should be able to get hit by a bus, and then it shouldn't really much matter to the business. People should be able to fill in the gaps and be able to pick up that conversation, because business should not be an adventure. That is a trap of entrepreneurship. Is people want businesses to be thrilling and exciting, but those are bad businesses. If business is always exciting and there's always fires to put out, that's not scalable, and that's obviously going to reflect negatively on the customer experience. You definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah, and that quote is something that Paul said while we were preparing for this, and I really liked it. And I've been looking at my own business through that lens of, okay, if I had to be away from my business for a month, could the business continue to operate and fulfill on things with the projects that we have? If not, what do I need to change around that? Same thing around sales. If I couldn't take sales calls for my business and I needed, let's say, my project manager to come in who's not a salesperson, right? Could she come in and have a sales conversation? It may not be as good as mine because, I'm energetic. I know what I'm talking about. I'm excited about this. She'd be kind of reading off a script, but could she do that? And could it still be effective enough to lead to a sale? And so I've been thinking about that a lot in terms of like, okay, if these key people left, could anybody else step in to fulfill that role? And we might limp along, but we're actually limping along instead of failing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's critical. It's got to be the same thing every single time, regardless of who it is. Especially when we start talking about that transition from sales, to sales from marketing here. So going upstream to the marketing, one of the biggest things that I see people ruining their customer experience with is not even knowing why somebody should care in the first place. You don't want to sell hamburgers to vegetarians. You got to know why people are there, what they want, how do they think, what are their motivators, what's happening in their life. Because if you don't know that, then you're not going to attract the right people into your sales process. You got to know, why should people even care in the first place?
Yeah, I think of the story. I don't remember where it comes from. I think you might know, Paul, but it was like a marketing class, and basically the guy that was teaching it basically said, if you had a hot dog stand, so everybody imagine with me, you have a hot dog stand, how would you sell? Like, what would you do to acquire customers and sell? And what's the best thing that you could do? And so people were like, well, have a good location, have better hot dogs, have bigger hot dogs, have people walking around talking to people. And he just said, the best thing that you could have is a room full of hungry people. Right. And so this is where this speaks back to, you really have to understand your audience. You really have to understand your market, understand almost like the jobs to be done, if you will. I'm a big fan of that framework when it comes to thinking through what message you want to take to your market. What is it that they're trying to do? And once they start doing that, what are their goals? What are their dreams? So that you can really speak to that and connect your offer to those outcomes.
Yeah. There's a legendary advertiser out there, David Ogilvy, who's done all sorts of print advertising, from back in the day. And he said in so many words that your customer is your wife. And what he means by that is that you need to understand your customer as deeply and as intimately as you do your spouse. You need to be able to speak to their problems and elucidate that better than they could. And so like a great example of this is like my wife. She'll get her nails done. And so anytime I see her grab like a can of soda or seltzer out of the fridge or something, I'll just go ahead and open it for her without asking so she doesn't ruin her nails, because I know that if you're trying to pop a soda tab, you can break a nail. And so I do it without speaking. And that's the level of understanding you need to have with your customer. You need to be able to enter that conversation that they're already having and just show up there and know why people should care in the first place. That's a huge one. So we've talked about separating the teams, and that is even worse for marketing, because if marketing is not talking to the sales team, then everything gets all jacked up. Can you imagine how ridiculous it would be if you saw an ad on TV for like a new Taco Bell fancy taco, and then you walked into the restaurant and you're like, I'll have a fancy taco, please. And the people at the door are like, what are you talking about? What's this? It's a ridiculous example, but like that mismatch, that misalignment happens frequently. You'll have marketing running some kind of promotion and sales has no idea that that's even running, and it creates a weird, awkward experience.
Yeah, with the telehealth companies that we work with, or the pharmacies that we'll work with, this becomes really critical where, for one pharmacy that we work with, we'll send a broadcast out or an email to, a set of providers talking about a specific treatment or talking about a specific medication that this pharmacy compounds, right? And what'll happen is we'll get providers to reply to those emails or book a call to speak with an account manager to discuss adding that treatment to that practice so they can start prescribing it, right? And one of the things that we ran into early on is these calls would get booked, the account manager would show up and they'd basically be like, so what do you want to talk about today? Right? Because there wasn't that good communication between, hey, we just made a big push about this particular treatment. You're going to see calls get scheduled around this. We'll make sure that there's a note on the opportunity card or whatever that says that they came from this email and they're most likely interested in talking about this specific thing, right? And so having that alignment there from the marketing to the sales side is really important. There's also on the reverse side, because sales reps are having these active conversations with these providers, they're hearing their concerns, they're hearing the objections that they're having, they're hearing the questions that people are asking. And so a good way to feed your marketing messaging is by having those conversations with the sales reps or your account managers and getting that feedback back of like, hey, so you just had 10 calls about this particular treatment. What was the most common concern? What was the most common question? How did those conversations go? What words did they use? How excited were they about this? Because that can feed back into your marketing messaging to make that even more effective. So marketing and sales oftentimes feel like they're at odds with each other, but really when you can get them to work together, they are an awesome team.
Yeah, there should definitely be that feedback loop. I recall a client recently, they turned ads on for some new thing, and leads were coming into the sales team, but they weren't qualified. They weren't the kinds of people that the sales team could work with. And so that information went back up to the marketing team that was running the ads, and they said, hey, fix this targeting, because they were getting people that were way too old for what they were looking for. And they're like, hey, we're getting like senior citizens for leads that we can't work with those folks. They're already retired. So like, stop targeting those folks. And so that got better marketing spend out of everything. And then sales was happy too. And then just that misalignment. I actually have a note here to talk about celebrity mismatches and alignment. And Heather brings up an example in the chat here that's happening right now between cover girl and some makeup influencer. And I'm just reading off of the chat here. It's apparently there's an ad in sales materials that says this product is for lips and cheeks, but the product is actually only for lips. It's not for your teeth,
Nice.
right? So like that's a pretty solid misalignment here. And sometimes celebrity endorsements aren't actually good for the business. Like I remember back in the day at Infusionsoft, there was a big name celebrity that partnered with them, and there's a huge marketing push and podcasts and sales promotions, and it did great for lead volume. It brought leads in, but those people weren't necessarily qualified because a lot of people that came in didn't have businesses already, or they were just starting out, or they had an idea for a business, which that's not something the sales team could work with. So as much as we love this person, it just wasn't a good JV. It wasn't a good celebrity to endorse our stuff because their audience was not the same as us, as Infusionsoft was. So,
and last thing here, just kind of describing that. Oftentimes people think that there might be a problem in their funnel or in their emails because those emails aren't converting. And with a little bit of auditing, it could just be that the ads are just attracting the wrong type of person, right? Mm-hmm. Which is why Paul and I have been discussing potentially doing a follow-up training here about lead generation, lead magnets, and ads. So let us know in the comments if you want us to do a deep dive into how to think through lead magnets that attract the right type of buyer for you, and how to run ads that bring them in so you can build your list. So let us know in the comments if you want to do that, if you want us to do that.
Absolutely. And attracting the right buyer, also making sure that you're repelling not your target audience. Good marketing should polarize. It should bring people in and then repel the people that are not yours. Not necessarily in an offensive way, but it should be very clear, like, oh, that's not for me. Again, hey, we're hot dogs, cool. Vegetarians don't care. So let's get to this last tactic here. Just like the Wild West of selling, you don't want to be committing manic acts of marketing here. And we've got the marketing guru in here because he's got 4 arms. So it's obviously, we were having some fun with AI here, but I don't know if for people who used to play Mortal Kombat back in the day, Goro was that dragon prince with 4 arms, right? So that's why we said, hey, this is the marketing Goro here. You don't want this with your marketing. You don't want to just go out and do whatever you feel like doing in the morning. You don't want to be marketing from an emotional standpoint because you're going to be missing really important stuff. You got to be disciplined and scientific with it. Even this today, me and Tyler have been working on this for a couple of months to be really intentional about, based on what we're trying to teach, who we're trying to teach it to, that like this is what's going to work. And then we're testing it. We're being, really data driven about it on the back end, because you gotta go ahead and have those systems and processes for that. You can't just be running around, hey, I heard this cool idea, let's go ahead and try this. That's not predictable, and that's going to be messy for everybody involved.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that having a good core system, so when we are working with clients, one of the first things that we do is we look at their life cycle, right? And we start fixing holes in their life cycle. And what I've seen time and time again is as we're fixing their customer journey or their life cycle program or their sales pipeline, all kind of the same thing, we're able to feed information back to their ads team, and they're able to market new things much more quickly and much faster because there's this internal confidence of, okay, if we have leads coming from Facebook and Google and LinkedIn and organic strategies and this particular funnel for like this webinar, they all kind of flow into this core customer journey. There's a lot of confidence there that says, okay, we're getting leads from all of these different places. I know that all of them are going to be followed up with. I know that all of them are going to have a good customer experience with us through this lifecycle program. And so you're able to test and iterate things faster rather than, hey, I want to do a 5-day challenge today. I'm going to throw out 5 posts about it, and we're going to kind of just see what happens. Right. And then you're just scrambling, trying to build those assets out while also marketing it. And it's just stressful. And so having, a good system on the back end, again, take 2 minutes to plan it out and to think through everything that you'll need so you can save yourself 15 minutes of work on the front end or on the back end because you have things organized here.
Yeah. And talking about systems here, when you've got those, you can move a lot faster because you're not reinventing the wheel every single time. So I think about the way that we deliver lead magnets, free gifts. We have a system that we use and anytime there's just like an asset to deliver it. So if it's like PDF or Google Doc or something like that, some deliverable, we have a system that we can just plug and chug. Like recently, I think last week, we released a blog post on how to advertise with ChatGPT that came with an ad planning tool for your GPT ads. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel here. We had our lead magnet delivery automation. We just made a copy of it, changed it to deliver the OpenAI ad plan, and that was it. That was handled. And then we didn't have to stress about creating this new thing from scratch. We have a very trusted, proven system that if somebody asks for something, we're going to get it in their hands, and it's going to be a delightful experience, and we're going to make sure to follow up with them. So, yeah, don't just run around randomly for your marketing. That's not going to work. So the major marketing takeaway for this, because we're wrapping up towards the end here, here's the thing that you need to keep in mind. Most important thing, y'all, set your faces for stun. Nobody cares about your opinion. I know, that's pretty wild. But really, you got to rely on consistent and accurate data if you're going to do marketing that's going to help you grow and scale and create a good customer experience. You got to be intentional about it. Even things like your Google Analytics and how you're tracking like your UTM parameters and that kind of stuff. You got to be able to rely on meaningful, real data and not just running around crazy based on how you feel.
Yeah. And that consistency really creates that foundation to then grow and scale, right? I've thought a lot about how consistency is one of the most important things for progress of just showing up, doing the same or similar actions just day after day, week after week, month after month. It sounds incredibly boring. It can still be very fulfilling. Like I find a lot of fulfillment in my work with clients, so I enjoy it. But if I look at what I do on a day-to-day basis, 80% of it is mind-numbingly boring, right? Because it's the same thing, just angled differently for different clients. And I still find a lot of fulfillment in that, but it's that consistency, right, that gets that growth. It's building that foundation that then you can build off of.
It is. So let's start taking it at home here, Tyler, and we'll open it up to some QA. Hello, everybody that's still hanging out with us. If you got some questions, start letting us know here, because ultimately, the cost of a bad customer experience is you're going to build a business that everybody hates, and it's a huge legal risk. So obviously, you don't want to do that. You always want to be improving. Even a 1% improvement daily, that pays off huge over time.
Yeah. Do it, and like Heather just said, at its core, entrepreneurship is not sexy. I know that TikTok and Instagram and YouTube makes you feel very differently, but ultimately 80% of entrepreneurship is not fun.
Yeah,
it's not sexy.
it gets romanticized. It definitely gets romanticized, and so but keep improving on it, and you don't have to fix everything all at once. It's incremental. I'm sure that throughout this you probably got some ideas of like, oh hey, yeah, that's something I should probably fix. Go ahead and just start working on it. So let's wrap up 9 tactics to ensure that you do have happy customers, starting with fulfillment.
Yeah. So first you got to sell something and know how you're going to deliver on those goods. So that speaks to a couple of things that we did talk about earlier, but knowing what it is and exactly how you're going to fulfill is going to create a happy customer.
And they're going to be happy because you've built your delivery systems. You've got those processes dialed in, and you're constantly iterating and improving on them when things change or stuff just stops working.
Tactic 3, you're going to be able to confidently delegate to your team. Your team is going to be able to move quickly. They're going to know exactly what they're going to be fulfilling on. They're going to have, those internal milestones for delivery for clients and things like that. So they're going to be happier, and you're going to have less stress.
Yes, true delegation, not abdication. And then make sure that you're selling something and you know exactly what they're going to get, and also what they're not going to get. Make sure you have those clear expectations.
Yep. And then you're going to have a good and completely integrated sales team and delivery team. They're going to have good communication. The sales team is going to know what they're going to be selling. Your delivery team is going to know what they need to deliver on, and it's going to decrease your stress and make happy customers.
Yes. And you're also going to have a happy team, especially the sales team, because you've got them selling intentionally and they're well trained and everybody's using the same process, which means everybody makes more money. The more disciplined a sales team is, usually the more successful they are at selling, which means everybody gets paid more, which that's what we all want, right?
At Tactic 7, you're going to launch something, push something, market something, and you're going to know why the customer should care. And so that message and that offer is going to really resonate with your potential customers, and it's going to attract the right people to you.
You're also going to be making sure that you are integrating your marketing and your sales teams, just like you're integrating your sales and your fulfillment teams. You're going to have that clear feedback loop between the two. And then that way they're not working in opposition, they're working in alignment towards the same goal and running in the same direction.
In Tactic 9, you're going to be committing data-driven acts of marketing. Instead of looking at a blank content and offer calendar, you're going to know what you want to offer and when and what is most likely to convert, because you'll have good data and consistency.
So the benefit of a good customer experience as opposed to the cost of a bad customer experience here. So you're going to have a world-class reputation. People are going to love you. They're going to go ahead and tell all your friends, and your brand is going to be very credible, and people are going to go ahead and love it.
Yep, you're going to see growth of the business, right? Happy customers are more likely to return. They're also more likely to leave you testimonials. They're also more likely to encourage others to come to you. And not only like just direct business growth, but also going back to like a good personal reputation in the space that you're in is also very, very coveted.
Yes. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is that you're mitigating that risk. You're preventing as many of those potential legal kerfluffles as you possibly can. That's not to say it's impossible to get, to never have this, but you're reducing how harmful like lawsuits and regulatory actions and fines and stuff can be. I've got a client, we were talking about chargebacks earlier, because they have well-documented processes. One of their high ticket clients tried to do a chargeback, but because they had all the documentation of like, we did this, customer did not do this, we did this, customer did not do this, they won the chargeback. So the customer said, nope, give me my money back. And then the payment gateway was like, well, they clearly delivered what you bought. You bought the hamburger, you just didn't eat it. That's not a reason for us to give you your money back. Yep. So ultimately, this is going to help your business last longer and be more successful, and everybody's going to be really happy here. And I think we can sum it up very simply, Tyler.
This is Bob, and Bob knows customer experience is everything. So be like Bob.
That's what we got, and we have a little bit of time for some questions here. I'm going to turn on a fun little where is it? had captions here. Oh yes, we have a Q&A time here. So go ahead and make sure you ask in your questions in the chat here. I'm going to go through, make sure we're not missing anything. And we mentioned we do have a couple of gifts for you here. So if you like me and thought that I was cool and you want to learn a little more about how customer journeys work, we have a free mini course called How to Automate Like a Pro. And in less than half an afternoon, you'll understand exactly our planning methodology, regardless of whatever CRM you're using for fulfillment, sales, and marketing. And you even get free working copies of the same Google Docs we use with our own clients.
That's awesome. And then my free gift to you is the Brain Blueprint. So I'm big on human psychology. I'm big on, belief shifting and things like that. And so over the decade of experience that I have, one of the things that we've tracked is when do people typically respond best to different topics. And we developed the Brain Blueprint. So it shows you how to hack your subscriber's brain to send the right emails on the right days. And you can get that at that URL right there.
So let's go look through see if we got any questions here. Got a lot of good comments here, and I think we can actually kind of show some of these here. Let's see what this looks like. So earlier when we were talking about reputation, Heather makes a great point that the internet is basically a small town where everybody's telling everybody else about all of their experiences. That's true. Nothing really lives in a bubble anymore. If one person has a bad experience, they're going to tell people, and it's really easy for that to just explode. Like it can literally be like one day there's nothing, the next day it's all over the internet. So it's more important than ever to make sure you have a great customer experience. Let's see. Got some acknowledgments here. Thanks for the fantastic tips. Thank you for showing up here. Thanks for sharing the knowledge. All right. And we're going to leave this on our channels as well. So if you're watching the replay and you have a question, go ahead and leave it in the comments. And either myself or Tyler, depending on which channel you're watching, we'll make sure to go ahead and answer that for you. I think that's about it for today. And look at that. We pretty much came in right on time. I love that. Our rehearsing paid off, everybody. So I don't think we need to necessarily beat a dead horse, man.
We covered it. We did it.
We did it. So I guess thank you for your time today, everybody. And if you're going to do anything, you might as well be pro. And we'll see you next. The next training that we were talking about, we did get some feedback about that, Tyler. Where
did we?
Yeah. I can't believe we skipped over that in the comments. Yeah, there's a couple people that it'd be good to know how to test different ways of marketing and targeting different groups. Yes, that would be great. You had mentioned a challenge earlier. I wonder if maybe we make this a little more interactive, because the last two trainings we did were, like this. Well, this training and the last one, we're just live talking. We get some chat. Maybe we'll do a challenge next time. So maybe we'll do like a 2-day something where like we have a working session together on day one, teach you some stuff, and then maybe day 2, see how it worked. I don't know. Does that sound fun, Tyler? That might be a little more interactive.
That might be a little more interactive. That'd be good. We could do like a lead magnet challenge, and the end goal would be like launch an ad or advertise it in some way, where we can do a little bit of a workshop. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, we'll do that. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and we'll figure that one out at some point, guys. Maybe by the end of the year. I don't know. I can't believe it's already August. This year's been ripping by. So feedback. We're looking to get takes on how to get into a client's mind. Got classic title there. Thank you for the feedback. Loan help you with that. Yeah, how to build a business that everyone hates and will likely get you sued if you do the 9 things we told you to not do. And you're gonna have some problems here. Okay. Well, I think this is a great place to close it out, Tyler. So have an awesome day, everybody. And that's it. We're done. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We will